All right, then let's get straight into the heart of today's matter. You remember what the governor of Kaduna State said, that Mr. Ibrahim Magu will remain and retain his job. We'll be looking at anti-corruption war in Nigeria and the EFCC top job. Let's get some perspectives to the matter now. Joining me from our Abuja studio is a lawyer, Mr. Daniel Bwala, and from London is a political analyst and rights activist, Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi, is also a television host. Many thanks, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Let me quickly come to you, Mr. Bwala. From a legal standpoint, is it right for the presidency to say, look, we're going to allow that man whom the Senate has rejected to retain his job, considering the fact that the power to screen in this sense is in the National Assembly, and they did say, the senators have said, look, until you respect the law when it comes to nomination and rejection and what the law says, we will suspend any form of consideration to nominations. Do you think what the presidency or the stance of the presidency as echoed by the governor of Kaduna State is right?
Well, thank you for having me. Let me stress right off the cuff that statement, if you take it on its face value, we can say it is right and it is wrong. It is right if the position is that Magu will remain as the acting chair of EFCC for as long as the administration exists and functions. But it will be wrong if the assertion is that Magu will remain the substantive chair of EFCC for as long as the presidency remains, because by the doctrine of separation of power, the role of the National Assembly to confirm an appointee of the president cannot be jettisoned under whatever circumstance. And a cursory look at the EFCC Act and the Constitution together, and having regard to the nature and sanctity of the Commission of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, it is imperative that a substantive chair of EFCC must be confirmed by the Senate.
And that brings us to this very question. If you look at the grounds in which Mr. Magu was rejected by the Senate, that was about the second appearance that he had at the chambers there. Do you think, morally speaking, of course, that the presidency should keep that man in that job?
Well, I like the question. I will address the question. You use the word morally, because if you had said legally, then I would have gone ahead to dissect it from my understanding of the law regarding the circumstance of the case. But you mentioned the word morally, and then it will be imperative in the circumstance to look at all the factors surrounding the rejection and the non-rejection. I have expressed this view over time, that the idea of the rejection of Magu is tainted with bad faith by the National Assembly. I have over time given a classical example of the reason why it is not easy and it will not be possible for the National Assembly to confirm him, because number one, quite a number of people in the National Assembly and especially in the Senate are under investigation by the EFCC, which Magu is leading. And then secondly, the very fact that Magu has over time spoken words that has inflamed the National Assembly, it is natural that they will want to stand in his way. On the other hand, it will be difficult to make a conclusion, for example, accusing the National Assembly when the report that ought to have cleared Magu has indicted him. It will not be nice in the circumstance for the National Assembly to close their eyes from that fact. But then there is another conflicting issue. The presidency, having reviewed the report, sent a letter saying, I'm satisfied that Magu has met the condition, therefore go ahead. So if you look at it from the moral standpoint, it is very, very dicey. It is difficult. It is like it is hydra-headed in all circumstances. But I think the moral lesson is, are we looking at institution building or we're looking at building of individuals? Personally, I feel that the consistent back and forth over Magu is long overdue. It is high time for us to take it to the next level. If I will advise the presidency, I will advise that in the circumstance, the president should simply reassign Magu to another important role and get someone else to pilot the affair so we can move forward with the anti-corruption war, because the back and forth is making the fight against corruption unpopular. I must be honest with you. The back and forth is making the fight against anti-corruption to be punctured with one fault or the other.
Okay.
The back and forth is affecting thorough investigation of the cases we are facing.
I
think that the presidency, having regard to the recent setback in the anti-corruption war, needs to review this.
Okay, let's bring Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi into the conversation now. From your own standpoint, Mr. Ogundamisi, we look at how the presidency looks retaining Mr. Ibrahim Magu as the EFCC chair when the parliament in Nigeria has simply rejected him. In terms of the PR of the presidency and a government that says it wants to fight corruption, how does it look when they say Mr. Magu is going nowhere?
First, the question is, he who would want to come to equity must come with clean hands. You're talking about a National Assembly that is composed of almost 80% of members of the National Assembly have been indicted in one corruption case or the other. These are people that are tainted, ex-governors who ruin their states, who see the National Assembly, especially the Senate, as a retirement center where we continue to pay them twice. We pay double pension to them. And it will be, it's actually interesting that they are against Magu. And if a set of mainly corrupt politicians who just make the National Assembly a retirement home to loot the treasury against Magu, it means Magu is doing something right.
Those are very strong. Those are strong allegations, Mr. Ogundamisi. It might be sweeping for some people who are very clean and watching and thinking, oh, yeah, those are too strong.
The fact speaks for themselves. If you can name one out of the multiple members of the assembly that is not facing one corruption charges against the other, then we will be. Almost 70% of members of the National Assembly are facing one corruption charges or the other. Actually, the head of the snake, the Senate president, is still facing, is on appeal for corruption charges.
Okay, let me quickly pause you for a moment. Let me pause the conversation for a moment because we need to go on a break. But when we return, we go back to London with Mr. Kayode Ogundamisi, but we'll still be discussing this issue of Mr. Ibrahim Magu, anti-corruption war in Nigeria when we return. Stay with us, everyone.